and the other two commissioners are not available to even connect by phone. So the two of us cannot approve anything, but we'll hear your appeals if you're here to present them. I'm going to call on Nick Lee to present us with the We're good to go? Yep, we're good to go. We're good to go? All right. Sorry for the delay, folks. Our Board of Equalization meeting comes to order on April 11th, 2023. We are unable to get a quorum. Our third commissioner is in an area that he cannot get cell service, and the other two commissioners are not available to even connect by phone. So the two of us cannot approve anything, but we'll hear your appeals if you're here to present them. I'm going to call on Nick Lee to present us with the 2022 Equalization Report at this time.
Good evening, Commissioners. Today you meet as the Local Board of Equalization in order to review the 2023 property assessments for the City of West Fargo. As you all know, 2023 assessments are based on the real estate market in 2022, and 22 was quite an active year for real estate. With ever-changing mortgage rates, numerous supply chain issues, and record inflation, 2022 still saw increasing real estate sales prices throughout the year. Thankfully for our department, we were able to wait until the dust settled to complete our analysis and see just how 2022 ended affecting the West Fargo real estate. There's a lot of stats in here, and I'm sure you guys have looked through it and everything, but just some things to kind of show the overall thing is it seems like the housing market's really in a pinch. You know, if you look on page 6, new residential permits were down 30%. On page 7, there was 22% fewer sales on MLS, but the median sale price increased 9%, and the average listing time dropped 8 days. This is despite seeing an average interest rate through the year of 5.33%. Additionally, we saw a record inflation of 8% last year. So overall, you know, these things all kind of point to a very tight market. Assessment department functions are regulated by the North Dakota State Tax Commissioner. As certified assessment officials, we are tasked with the responsibility to appraise all real property within our jurisdiction in a fair and equitable manner based on market value. For the 2022 sales study, the state of North Dakota has given us a median sale tolerance of 90 to 100%. After adjustment, our ratios stand at 92.5 for commercial and 93.5 for residential, both within tolerance and acceptable to the state. Tonight, as a Board of Equalization, you're asked to hear any appeals from West Fargo property owners regarding the proposed 2023 values. This meeting gives any property owner who believes their value is incorrect the opportunity to formally appeal. A list of property owners who have submitted an appeal prior to the meeting have presented to you. They'll be recorded as submitting appeal at tonight's hearing, allowing them the option to appeal at the county if they so choose. Finally, I'd like to remind everyone present this board meets to discuss property valuation, not property taxes. Property taxes are a budgeting issue and should be addressed during budget hearings. So if there's any questions from the board at this time, I'd be happy to answer them. Otherwise, we can proceed to open the meeting for public input. Just one note as well, too, since we don't have a quorum, it sounds like we're going to adjourn this meeting afterwards, after hearing the appeals, and take it up again at the Monday meeting. If we can get it on the agenda still, I think we probably can. So then that'll be the time we'll have to take action.
Okay, thank you, Nick. All right, at this time I'm going to open up the meeting to anybody who wishes to address the board, and just as Nick said, that the local Board of Equalization. Okay. I'll try this again. The local Board of Equalization is concerned with the equity and the fairness of property values, not taxes. Property tax amounts are a budgeting issue and should be addressed during the budgeting hearing. So at this time, if there's anybody here that has filed an appeal that wishes to address the Board of Equalization, now would be the time to do it. Gentleman there with the plaid shirt, if you want to come up and state your name and address.
Hi, I'm Kent Harris, and I'm just here for the address of 645 Somerset Lane. Do you want the long story or just the short one?
Whatever you want to
Okay.
tell us.
Last May, I ended up inheriting this house. It was my mother's house. She passed away at that time. So I'd had a realtor come in late fall, early fall, to give me an appraisal on it. And then when I got the 22 tax year statement, I noticed the tax year statement was way over what the realtor said the property was. So I called the auditor, and they sent out a Dave over here to come and look at the property, and got adjusted down quite a bit, which all made sense. And I would just like to kind of keep it at that value that was adjusted to in December for a year or two, just to kind of get caught up, because myself and two brothers and sister are trying to get this thing all sorted out. If we could just leave it as is for a little couple of years and go for that. That's all I'm asking for.
Okay? Thank you.
All right, thanks. Now,
Any
do I need
comment?
to stay around for anything?
No, you don't need to stay around. Yep.
All right, thanks.
Anyone else wish to address the board?
Good evening, Tyler Carlson. I live at 2610 Pile Lane East in West Fargo. Question before I start, since we don't have a quorum here, will I have to come back on whatever day we re-adjourn? Okay. I bought this property this past July, and at that time, the tax assessed value was something like $528,000. And over the course of the preceding 4 years, it had been on a steady increase. Over those 4 years, a total of 7.5% increase. This year, I get the notice, it's going up $137,000, an increase of 26,000, or 26%, excuse me. As we just heard Mr. Lee say, this has been a tight year, a tight market. So I asked, well, why, when it's been the toughest year in the past 5 years, have I seen a huge spike? And he explained, well, we looked at like sales, one of which is your own purchase. And purchase was $670,000. So the tax assessed value of $666,200, I said, well, I guess I can't argue too much with that. But the interesting thing to me was that the adjusted sales price is that the amount of specials that the buyer is assuming is then tacked on to the sale price. And to me, that seemed backwards, because the special assessments in my mind are akin to a lien or a bill that I now have to pay. If we're considering the specials at all, which I don't think we should, they should be on the asset side, not the, they should be on the debt side, not the asset. They should reduce the tax assessed value of the property, not increase it. Is there any, and I looked at the statutes, I looked at the general tax assessed statutes, I looked at the Board of Equalization statutes. I didn't see anywhere in there where it said that those specials are required to be considered in adding the valuation. Is
Nick, would you address that, please?
Yep. So it doesn't call out special assessments because not everybody uses those, but 570204, Century Code says the land, improvements to the land, which has been interpreted as those kind of improvements that make the land buildable, and structures and buildings are all to be considered.
improvements to the land, but specials are about improvements to the land surrounding the land, are they not? It's not like they're building a road, on my property. Or
Right, but if they didn't have a road, how would you get to your property to build on it? How would you get water out to it? I mean, we have this discussion every year, and whether I agree with it or not is irrelevant, because that's the interpretation by the state, is that special assessments are the improvements to land, and that's what they want us to put onto the sales. And that's the only time that we deal with specials. If the new specials put onto a neighborhood or something and everybody gets $50,000 in new specials, we don't go and add $50,000 to all those properties. The only time we deal with specials is when it sells and if they're assumed. If the person would have paid them off, we wouldn't have put it on the sale price. If you assume them, then they give it up, put on the sale price.
Now, if I own a property and I pay off all the specials,
Yep.
does my tax assessed value go up and down based upon that, or only upon
Nope.
this
it's
sale?
just because the sales go into the, universe of sales, and that time, that person bought the house and assumed those specials, making this total price, and that's the only time we deal with specials.
Isn't the board required to equalize or find the equitable and fair value of the property every year?
Yep.
So why is it that it's only when there's a new home buyer? That seems incongruent to me.
Are you talking about the increase now, or are you talking about specials?
Well, in this case, let's just deal with specials.
Okay. So each year people buy properties and we put the specials on there as required. And if they're still assuming specials of that kind of like $40,000, $50,000, that's what we're putting on these sales. So then the next year, when they pay a little bit more and then they still assume, and maybe it's even a little bit less, but usually the specials payment doesn't really outpace how much people are paying more for houses, it seems like, but that's all me guessing in the future, and I don't like doing that. But as far as the large increase in the year, yes, we are on a 5-year review schedule. We try to get through all the houses we can. Sometimes people don't let us in. We also review every sale because we've got access to MLS records. Anytime we find a correction, we make it. Anytime somebody calls and asks us to go through a house and we go through a house, we make a correction. So it's basically anytime we can get through, we get through, and anytime we see a correction in our data, we make the correction. So that big spike was apparently we'd never been in this one, or we had been in there a long time ago. I don't know, but when it sold, we were able to get proper records on it, and it hit closer to the actual value.
So you mentioned the interpretation by the state
Yep.
is that the special there to go on there. Is there any, I guess, where are you getting that guidance? Is there something I can read that says, hey, this is where they said that, or is that just in a meeting that you guys have?
No, I guess I would refer you to the State Department, State Tax Department,
Yeah.
Property Tax Division. But it is something we hear almost every year, so
Sure,
Gotta
because to
check
me,
in
they're-
with the
the specials existed well before I bought the house.
right.
And they'll be counted when I buy the house,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll be counted again when I sell the house. That to me seems like a double, a triple, however many times it's bought and sold, counting of something that, like I said, shouldn't really even be considered in the first place, because we're talking about market value.
Right.
It's what it sold for. That's the market.
In a lot of states, they don't have special assessments, as someone who's gonna develop a neighborhood like that would just put it all in the lot. So if here we're charging you 20 for the dirt and 40 for the specials there, it would just be, hey, $60,000 for this lot, and we wouldn't be having this discussion, and it does make things muddy, and unfortunately, we have this discussion a lot, but has been the interpretation for a few decades anyway.
All right. Well, I'll look to the state tax department for that interpretation. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak to the board? Gentleman in the red.
My name is Darrell Lund. I live at 1518 Maple Lane. I just wanted to say that my property is extremely undervalued. Is my wife still awake back there? Actually, I'm questioning why my property increased in value by 12%. And if, as the gentleman before was told, that his property was worth more because of improved streets or sewer or whatever the special assessments were, does that mean mine should be worth less because I haven't had any improvements done with street, sewer, or lighting? Potholes, they should deduct the value of my property, I suspect.
Yeah, you go count them right in front of your house, and 1% each. Yeah, I mean, when you look at, we do break land and building out in our overall value. I would venture to guess that your land value is a lot less than his. And as for the 12% increase, that's what I'm looking at right now, seeing if there's anything. You must have been in a review area last year, it appears. Do you remember getting a letter?
Do I remember getting a letter?
Yeah, we sent out a letter to our review areas asking if we can go through or anything like that. And if we don't get through, we don't, I mean, we just make corrections, like, you know, if we see something from the street or something. Otherwise, we just got to make an estimate from the street, I guess.
Well, I have the current letter,
Right.
which is
Last summer, we
one
would
that
have sent out a letter saying, you know,
I
we're doing.
presume that if I didn't attend this meeting, that, and no one would come out to inspect it, that this would be automatically charged as the valuation. I don't recall getting a letter asking for someone to walk through my house last year, but they certainly are welcome to. We're the original inhabitants 30 years ago. I did clean quite well before Easter, so that might affect it somewhat. But other than that, virtually no improvements, original carpeting. We never added a patio deck, so you know, cracks in the ceilings and all those sorts of things. I really think that the outside is not indicative of the improvements or lack of over 30 years.
Okay. Well, sure sounds like we want to get through this one. So if you could give your information to Stephen, we'll set up something and make sure we got the right records.
All right? Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak?
So we provided some paperwork. I apologize. We're 1280 Goldenwood. Seems it came over a little out of order, so hopefully we're able to follow it here. So basically just looking at, we did have some of the comp values sent over to us so we could take a look at them before the meeting and just provide kind of some feedback on that. Based on what we're finding, it appears that both our lot and our dwelling are being overvalued. If you take a look at the lot first, it appears that the special assessments may have been added to the value twice. When we purchased the lots, it shows, and you probably will have to scroll down and expand on it, but if you go to where we purchased the lots, because we purchased them ourselves, right there. So when we purchased the lots, the specials of $78,863 that were owing at the time were added to the adjusted sales price, and our lot was then valued at $154,000 for that following year, having added on the special assessments already. And then when we completed building our property and we got the certificate of occupancy in 2022, the $66,000 worth of specials that were still owing at that time were then tacked on to the value of our property again, bumping our property value up from $154,000 to $220,000 when nothing else had really changed. So it really looks like the value of the specials that we're due and owing were added twice, both when we purchased the land and then when we completed the property. And I think that it was an oversight because typically developers or home builders or somebody else purchases the land and that it's not for building at that time. And therefore, it was overlooked that the specials had already been added on, and they were added on again in 2022 when we finished, which you can see at the top, as our land value increased significantly the year that we got our certificate of occupancy. You might have to go all the way to the top and probably
Right
expand
there,
the,
hit more years on, no, go back one.
gotta hit more years under the, there.
There you go.
So 2020 was right after we purchased, and the 78,863 that we owed on specials at that time was added on to the value of what our lot was. And then when we finished building the house and got our certificate of occupancy, we owed around 66,000, and that was then added back onto the land value again. So essentially, we believe we paid our specials twice in the value of our land. And some of the supporting documentation that we provided kind of demonstrates how kind of out of sync the value and cost of our land is, both with respect to Goldenwood, where our lot is, and with respect to other lake properties in West Fargo. One of the first graphs that we provided shows the price per square foot of lots in Goldenwood. And you can see that the bigger the lots get, it's kind of a downward graph up until you get to our property. It says page 1 at the bottom right-hand side of the paperwork. Apologize, I think they printed out of order for you guys. But you'll see that when we get to our property, even though it has more square footage, we're being charged and we're paying, according to this, more per square foot than any of the other properties. It doesn't follow the graph of the rest of Goldenwood.
And these, and the lots that we pulled off of here are 5th edition, so it's well, I guess technically we're the latest 6th edition because we combined 2 lots, so, but it's 5th edition, basically our neighbors on either side with river access, tried to make it as comparable as possible. And then, so that 314 is basically total square foot, what we're paying, or what our value of 220 divided by our 70,000 square foot. So it just seems like, the bigger your lot gets, the gross square foot, or the square foot pricing should be lower, because you can still only build one house on the lot, right? So it's not as valuable.
Nick?
So,
Yep. Let me first explain what happened to land. All of the residential land, as it's being developed, has got obsolescence on it for that final, finish grading and seeding and all that stuff. So it doesn't go to full value until the house is on there and it's done. So that's why the jump in land value. Now, that being said, looking at this, I agree that the land needs some adjustment. So we can definitely look at that and get that adjusted. You have a large number of frontage, or a large frontage on that lot, since you combined 2, and that's very unique. So I'm sure that was one of those things that was tossed in the pile and treated like everybody else, and probably should be adjusted a little bit. And so, yeah.
Well, and that's kind of why we had also provided some land values from Carmel Place, because it is a significantly nicer development than ours, but those lots are all larger, and they have quite large properties on them. So we also provided some comparable square footage pricing from Carmel Place, I believe, was it page 4?
So if you go to sheet 4, I can kind of run through. Basically, I just highlighted the yellow, which would be our lot. Same thing, I pulled the river access lots, and let you get
Page
to
4
it.
on the lower right-hand
Yeah,
side,
it's
it should
just-
say.
I think theirs is really out of order.
Okay.
Well, regardless, I can kind of just talk to you about it quick. But anyways, their square foot sizes of their lots are anywhere from 56,000 to about 122,000 that have access to the river. And their ranges at 56,000 are about $2.15 a square foot down to $1.24 a square foot when you get up to that big 122,000 square foot lot. Again, all of these have river access like ours. There's a building control line in there. And then you look at ours still at
Page 1, okay.
315.
4, okay.
This is it.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think you got it all. Page 4
Sorry
is
about
there.
that.
No, it's,
We got it, here we go.
Yeah, sorry about that. So again, this graph and chart is kind of just has them in order of their gross, or their square foot, from smallest to largest. Again, this is the only other place I could find river lots like this, and it just seems odd that in that neighborhood with multiple $1 million plus homes, and, you know, a little closer to town, not in an industrial park next to a trailer park, next to the airport, next to, you know, a concrete mix plant, their values are, you know, significantly less for their land values, not talking dwelling values. Obviously, their dwellings are a lot higher end, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure you've been in them, so you've seen those houses compared to what we've got up by us, but.
Well, and there's also a distinction made too on the property website between, you know, their square footage, it lays out like what's before the building property,
The building control line.
building control line.
So basically, I just put it as like a percent of buildable property that we can make improvements, or I guess permanent improvements, or whatever you want to call them. And, you know, they have a lot more land that they can build on, which I would think would also increase the value of that land. But you've already kind of stated you were going to look at the land, so we
Right.
won't go too much more on it.
Just as far as Carmel Place is concerned, and I gotta verify this because I don't have it up right now, but I'm not sure they have all the utilities, like the sewer system over there and that kind of stuff, so that plays into,
Yeah, I don't think they do, but most of them were over $100,000 less than ours for value.
right? And, yeah, that is a very older neighborhood and all that stuff, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll look at that land value. I think there's something that needs to be done there, so,
And I think we were a little concerned too with the property, like our dwelling value, just especially with the significant increase from 2022 to 2023, because we had our certificate of occupancy in 2022, like February 25th, I believe, was when we were able to move in. And one of the comparable properties that was provided, they closed on theirs February 24th, just the day before, for this year. And the city's still valuing theirs at only roughly half of what it cost them apparently to build and close on their house. And we had it as, I believe, Exhibit C, but I don't think yours got labeled. It's like a spreadsheet,
oh, yeah, this one.
just like that. That was the second page.
Oh, the other one, okay, yep. I saw that one, I got it here.
Yeah, so these were the 4 properties that we were provided as comparable values to ours, and kind of the justification, looks like it's right there. The justification for the increase from 2022 to 2023, but it really does still highlight how much more inflated our value is compared to some of theirs. So the columns are kind of labeled, but it's the difference between the dwelling value from last year to this year are the first 2 columns, and then the percent of increase. 2 of them were just finished, so they didn't have a value on the dwelling for last year, so that was hard to kind of compare the 2. But if you take a look at the city's valuation, that 4th column, you know, our property and the second property are valued like literally pennies, like for the exact same. And this is a very large property in Rivers Bend. The basement's completely finished. They have very extensive landscaping. It's a very beautiful house, actually. And they're valued at the exact same for the end valuation. But also, if you take a look, you know, at the adjusted, like I looked up all the sale prices or the, you know, closing prices. Some of them were recent sales, some of them were recently built, and compared it to the city's valuation. And our house is the only one that's valued higher by the city than what it was appraised by the bank and what we technically closed for with the bank when we built it. And it's significantly higher. It's 16% higher than our basically closing price, what the sale price would have been from the builder. And all the other properties listed were either very, very close, almost exactly on, or lower. And I don't know what's going on with 1332 because they finished the same time we did, but they're still only valued at half the price of their adjusted sale price. So I'm not sure where their valuation is, but
Not to tattle on our neighbors.
don't adjust it and blame us. But it's just they finished a day before us, so it just seems weird that, you know, if the argument is that in 2022 our house wasn't completely finished, But the only thing that wasn't done when we had our certificate of occupancy, the only thing that's changed from 2022 to 2023 was that we were finally able to get the pool put in. That was kind of the plan at the whole time, but they were like a year out because of all the COVID stuff. So we didn't pull the permit on that until right before they were like ready to start ours. And I think it was like July of 2022. Our appraiser for the bank gave it a value of 25,000. It looks like the city's giving pools a value of 65,000. I don't know why there's such a big difference in that appraised value. But really, like the only thing that's changed from 22 to 23 was that the pool was put in and finished. Our basement's not finished. It does say that on, if you scroll down, it says the lower level is finished. Under
And I believe that's what you were touching on before the meeting.
I think it's
Drop
single.
down under occupancy, there's a little drop down there. It says fire and energy code compliance. That's a value for insulation and the capped ceiling that they're required to do on any new build newer than 2009. It is very misleading, I guess, but it is not for formal finish.
Okay.
Can I just hit on one thing here?
Of course.
I kind of lost my train of thought here, but we're required to value properties as of February 1st. So when we get out there and we come out about February 1st, if it doesn't have siding or doesn't have doors in it, our appraisers will make a judgment call, and we're not professional builders or anything, and a lot of times they're a little light-handed on these things, and they'll put it 80% or something, just so it's relevant. And so when things start to close in February, you'll see them close at the end of February, and then we only had an 80% value on it. And that's just kind of the nature of we got to put a value on it as of February 1st. Now, if one looks at more done than the other, maybe they had more siding on, or maybe one had stone, so it didn't need to have siding on the front. I mean, all those things are kind of, that just happens, I guess. So an incomplete value versus a complete value, that's usually on these the reason for the big jump.
So what you're saying, Nick, is back on the 2022 value, we had to make a line in the sand, so to speak, on February 1st, and whatever was constructed at that time, that's what value we placed on it. And then for 2023, on February 1st, we put another value on it because it was complete.
Yeah, the completed value.
That's how we do it for everybody.
All right, and that's how we're required to do it. So I think you guys knew that would happen on your property, but I'm just saying on some of these, I'd have to check them to see if they were also February closings, if we had full value on them last year versus this year.
Well, and just,
But we can definitely take a look at this whole thing. I think our typical process on this is to get out, look at the property again, then bring it in and do a thorough analysis on the neighborhood and all that. And we haven't quite got to that point yet, but I think we need to do that. So if you just want to, say whatever you want to say. I'm not trying to cut you off. I'm just saying that that's what I'd recommend we do going forward here.
yeah, I think we'd really appreciated having a second look, because we'd really tried to get a larger loan from the bank to pay off some specials and things like that, and they told us that absolutely not. They capped the property value at $720, and it was the middle of 2021 when there were bidding wars for like every house, and we tried to get our realtors to find some comps to justify, trying to get them to look at their appraisal again, and they just refused to increase it. So it's just a little hard to stomach, being told like you can't finish your house that you wanted to because it's only worth $720 at the high end, and then to have the city, like a year later come in and say, oh, it's actually worth $850.
Sure.
We could have done a lot more with that kind of money. So if that's what it was actually worth, it just feels like somebody like it'd be nice to have it looked at and see if where that disconnect is happening.
Perfect. You could just give them a contact number, or we have your contact information? Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to address the board?
Sorry to come up here twice, but I kind of forgot to say, I guess, my prayer for relief for what I was really asking for. So I'm just asking that, right now in my house, adjusted sale price, 712,300. Of that, tax assessed value, 66,200. That's 93.5%. I'd request that specials not be considered because I don't think it's fair or equitable or proper to consider those, and to take the actual market price, which was the sale price, of 670,000, and you can apply that same 93.5% and come up with a figure of 622,450. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, well, since we do not have a quorum, is there anything else that we'll just have to close the meeting at this point?
Yeah, I guess we just adjourn it till Monday, put it on the schedule, and then have enough people to make action. But I want to go ahead and assure these people that we will look at all these cases, let's say, and you do not have to attend Monday. I don't believe that. I mean, it'll be up to you guys if you want to have another forum, but
We'll leave that up to the mayor.
right. But we should tell them they don't have to attend
Right.
if they don't need to. I mean, the writing and stuff will come to a resolution, and we'll send you the what the value is and that kind of stuff.
Basically, the only thing that we would probably do on Monday would be to approve the minutes from last year and then to make a motion to move it on to the county,
Right.
more or less. Yep.
Right. So
And considering your appeals, and then
right.
there's a list of
He'll authorize
the
me.
others that have already appealed too,
Right.
so.
They'll formally authorize me to work with you guys and adjust the values, and then wrap up the other ones that aren't being appealed at that meeting. So it doesn't require really you to be there. If you want to, I'm more than happy to. Open meeting. It'll be up to the mayor if we want to have a forum on it. Didn't sound like there was going to be one, but
We're
I
in
guess if somebody,
uncharted waters right now,
yeah, this has never happened in my 10 years, so I don't.
and we apologize.
So, we can't even close the meeting officially, so you just
Right.
gotta adjourn it.
Yeah, we just have to adjourn the meeting. All right, with that, we're adjourned.